Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some more massive news for Texas A&M. Mike Elko coming out of the recruiting trail. Four-star linebacker slash edge rusher Marco Jones committing to Texas A&M. Now, Marco Jones himself, just a fascinating prospect where you kind of look at the body and say 6'5", 240 pounds going into his senior year. You kind of come away with this kid's probably going to kick down to that edge rusher spot as he gets to the collegiate level. I think that's certainly a possibility, but you dive into the film, you watch him play off-ball linebacker and say, this is a special caliber athlete at that off-ball backer position where you look at 6'5", 240, and he is extremely dynamic from this off-ball linebacker spot. He can go sideline to sideline. He can drop back in coverage. He can operate in space. I think this is truly one of the more versatile prospects that you see in this 2025 class. And I think at the end of the day, Mike Elko comes away from Marco Jones and says, we're just going to bet on the athlete. This kid is a really good football player. We'll figure out the rest once he comes to this Texas A&M program. Really, really excited about this pickup. Another one of those, just Mike Elko kind of guys in terms of we're going to bet on the traits and we're going to develop the football players. Really excited to get into the film. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast talking this program on the recruiting trail. Since Mike Elko has taken over, the amount of support you guys continue to show truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Marco Jones. And we kind of have this conversation a lot. Mike Elko sees the high school recruiting game in kind of a similar way I do, where he's just recruiting the athletes. And I think he got into Marco Jones and said, hey, we just need this kind of football player on our team. I think where you want to start is the production. I mean, 315 tackles, 24 tackles for loss, 5 interceptions during his last 2 years at the high school level. This is a linebacker that just finds the football, can cover so much ground extremely effectively. But then when you see him kick down to that edge rusher position, I mean, he looks like he could be a very, very talented edge rusher as well. The get off is extremely fun. He's got long arms, power in the hands. This is a guy that I think you could get kind of creative with in terms of maybe that off-ball linebacker spot on first and second down when it gets into those third and long spots. Move around Marco Jones, let him get after the passer from a couple of different ways. You look back at a guy like Edgerrin Cooper. Edgerrin Cooper was a phenomenal pass rusher for Texas A&M. This is a Texas A&M defense that I would, even with Mike Elko taking over, continue to use your linebackers as difference makers. I think Marco Jones can be just one of those, difference maker linebackers where he's going to get downhill. He can rush the passer. I'm a big fan of Marco Jones, really big fan of the athlete. And again, you get into the film, and I think the first thing that stands out is just the athlete at a legitimate 6'5", 240. I mean, one, making plays, good ball skills. You see the athleticism on the return. This kid can absolutely cook for a 6'5", 240-pound frame. I love this play a lot. We just talked about Noah McKell kind of having a similar rep on his film the other day. Off-ball linebacker who is 6'5", 240, takes up a lot of different throwing windows. I mean, just such good feel for dropping back in his zones, reading the quarterback's eyes, then using that big frame, going up and making a play. I mean, this is textbook. You see so many young off-ball linebackers really struggle to kind of drop back in coverage and have that feel. Marco Jones putting it right on display. I think the second couple reps you're going to get into is just this kid attacks the line of scrimmage. I mean, you talk about instincts, you talk about playing downhill. That's absurd. I mean, you're talking about a linebacker that just has a really good feel for that position. And then you kick him into the edge rusher. And this is kind of where I would ask Texas A&M fans, like, where do you see Marco Jones? Because at 6'5", 240, with the athleticism that he possesses, those are the kind of guys you want rushing the passer off the edge. You see the power in his hands, just taking this tackle, putting him right to the side, going out, getting the quarterback. The guy that could legitimately play edge rusher, could play the off-ball linebacker spot. You just look at him flying around the football field, his ability to close the distance between himself and the ball carrier. For a linebacker that's 6'5", 240 pounds is nuts. You see him playing the edge rusher here where he's going to go try to tackle the running back, change his mind, tackle the quarterback. This kid just flies around. He's a premier athlete on the defensive side of the football and a guy that legitimately could play he could put his hand in the dirt, come off as a 5 technique, could play the outside linebacker spot, could play the off-ball linebacker spot. I think there are so many different things you could do with just a premier athlete that Marco Jones is. And I think what's really interesting to talk about is you look at some of these front seven defenders for Texas A&M, right? You add Marco Jones, now you have Noah McCall. What if a guy like Jonah Williams commits to Texas A&M? And that is like some really freaky athletes that you could potentially have in the front seven for Texas A&M. My biggest takeaways: one, Texas A&M doing a great job in California. I mean, 4 of their top 5 commits are from the state of California. But I think secondly, I think this front seven, specifically this linebacker position with Jonah Williams potentially joining, Noah McCall, and now Marco Jones, at some really, really talented chess pieces for Texas A&M at that linebacker spot. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.